This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Bunurong peoples. We pay respects to elders past, present and future and acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy. Tonight we present the final Dean's Lecture Series for 2023 with guest lecturers Chloe and Michael Humphreys. Their lecture, titled A Sense of Identity, will focus on key projects of their landscape architecture and design firm, the Landscape Studio. Chloe and Michael formed the Landscape Studio in 2013 and have since worked on a wide range of projects in East Africa and Europe. They are driven by a desire to find a sense of identity in design, with a belief that landscape projects should have a distinct sense of place. In that sense, their work is led by a consideration of context, with an in-depth consultation process with the local community and an understanding of the surrounding environment informing the ultimate design outcomes. The resulting projects are typified by bold gestures, elegant in their simplicity, that are designed to last long into the future. Tonight they will explore projects in Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda. Please welcome Chloe and Michael.
Good evening. Well, thank you, Dean Professor Julie Willis. And thanks as well to Professor Alan Purr, the Deputy Dean, for inviting us to your lectures. Thanks to Rosanna and Tiana for organising the event, and Professor Bates and Professor Groves, and especially Margaret, who came and pushed for us being here. It's been a wonderful host during our time in Melbourne. When we were invited to come here and speak to all of you, we thought immediately on about the students and what is it? I mean, that we wanted you to take away. What is it that we really wanted to say? And yeah, it basically came to what the title of our lecture is, which is something that's been, I mean, present with us from the very beginning. Yeah, we're a very small and young practice. As Dean just said, we started in 2013, nearly 10 years ago, and we're very much still learning and growing and finding a way in every project, in every situation. For this reason, we're very humbled and grateful for the invitation. Chloe and I grew up in very different parts of the world, with different language, different traditions, different food, different habits, everything. But our realities were very different, politically, economically. I mean, Chile and Kenya, I mean, today, I mean, I don't think they couldn't be any more different, but yeah, at one point in history, I guess, in our childhoods, and this is like an anecdote from a family friend much older than us, who was old enough when we were young to have lived in both places, is that at that point in history, they both felt exactly the same. They both could have gone anywhere. Anyhow, as I said, I'm Chilean. Chile's a long country with every landscape that you can imagine, which is quite powerful, and it really, I know, it just takes
consumes you.
Yeah, absolutely. It overpowers. So from Atacama, Patagonia, my childhood, which was spent most of the time in the south of Chile, getting lost in forests and whatnot. And Kenya, and Chloe, she grew up in Kenya, British Kenyan, an old colonial British family in Kenya. She grew up very much connected to the bush, with a love of gardening and yeah, we do. Since forever. And observation was always the key. It's Chloe's mum. She was always coming with stories of how she really had an eye that no one else had, even as a child, to read the bush and understand, like to see the different things and understand reading in different ways. It's quite poignant. Her family also has a strong connection to conservation. At the time of hunting, the big animal, big game, was rife. Her great-grandfather, was it? Would always push the idea of always leaving room for wildlife. This seed was passed on to the rest of the family, the different generations, which already are very, very into conservation, and it's also planted a seed into our own practice as a studio. However, the difference is in how we grew up. We both have a number of things in common, which is, I guess, obviously what brought us together. We both went to art school. But I guess that the main sort of connection between our experiences growing up is a sense of isolation that each place sort of brought onto us. Chile is very isolated geographically from the rest of the world, not just because it's far away, like Australia, but it's also, I mean, it's the ocean on one side and the Andes on the other. So even though it's in mainland, there's always been a sense of a personality of being islanders, and very, very disconnected from the rest of the world. And well, that evolved. It's a social. It used to be now less with how the world's opened up, but it is a sociological phenomenon. And this feeling of isolation from the rest of the world pushed something onto us, pushed an eye and attention to just taking and working and playing with what's there. And in hindsight, I can say this has been part of ourselves all of our lives. This contentment and eyes open to our environment, and this has been passed on to our kids as well, who always building and just building tools, toys, worlds out of anything and everything. There's a little crab that Aidan made with peanuts and shells, and it's just but it's part of who we are as individuals, as a studio, as the family. So the way we see it is not needing, but what's there is a superpower, especially in today's dopamine draining world we live in. Playing with what's there is how we establish a connection with a location, is how we build a sense of place by giving it significance. In this connection, we learn about ourselves. The material world that constitutes the support for this is not only defined by its elements, but by the unknown number of living organisms and systems they establish for life. This is what we understand as the natural landscape. So there are two foundational dimensions to approach a work. Of course, there's the client's brief, the budget, the main consultant, etc. But the place is much of a stakeholder for us as the client or the users. So what we want to share with you is our narrative, is our story of how we've chosen to play with both the human landscape and the natural landscape that were there. I wish to celebrate the human and natural landscapes that we've had the luck to affect. A humble and quiet orchestration of how we interact with our surroundings in the natural world. Sorry, something. So en route to a visiting site in some projects we're doing in France, randomly at a petrol station, they're selling books, and there was this book about the course de paysage, the courses of landscape. And in there was this sketch which, I don't know, it drew our attention, and somehow we keep coming back to this image in the discussions we keep having every day. And it's a very simple illustration. It's pretty much like the Gestalt principle for visual communication, for design. Empty fullness, contrast, juxtaposition. It's very simple, but in a way it seems to tell at least part of the story of how we've interacted with our environment. So the image on the left basically speaks about the clearing of the areas where we decided to settle, where we said here, and fell everything to create a safe space around us, protect ourselves from the dangers around us. And this can be seen in many of the East African cultures, where they have a real obsession for sweeping and clearing everything around the houses and the living spaces. So much so that it gets to a point where nothing grows, and not only nothing grows, in many cases it looks like polished concrete. It's quite something. And this is out of the fear of snakes. And then on the other side, we have the enclosing. This is, I guess, we're more familiar with this, because this is basically to protect what's precious to us, to contain, which is, by the way, where the definition of garden comes from, right? From the Germanic, which is meant to mean to grasp, to enclose, which has a relation with the Hortus Conclusus and all the early days of gardens. But this really becomes a necessity only after we've settled somewhere and taken possession of that location and making it our own. But what we do find interesting is how we seem to be spiraling back to where we started. Well, this quote from Mark Twain says, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes." Hello? And this is exactly what feels that's happening. I mean, this is basically what we see farmland nowadays. So at this point in history, where most of the landscapes in the world look like this, what you see now, we're trying to recreate those wild areas to protect nature, which is nothing short but a redefinition of the garden. And a beautiful example for this phenomenon is in action is that of the Ethiopian church forests, which originally more than a third of land in Ethiopia was covered in forests, which provided a safe refuge in the ample sense of the world to a number of small churches. These had an intimate relationship with the forest and the life sustained by the forest hosted them to a point of symbiosis, which is, again, that you can connect to the Druids afterwards and the cloisters after that and the whole history of gardens, but from the principle of our first sketch. So without going into too much detail, the population after that increased, agriculture expanded, and today less than 5% of the vegetation covers the entire country. And these emblematic forests are basically the epitome of the place where we just are talking about in danger of disappearing. And they're the last sort of redance of biodiversity in Ethiopia. So their end it would be the end of probably one of the most ancient cultural traditions, and the end of, as I was saying, the last pockets of biodiversity in the country. And various efforts are being pushed at the moment to try and save them through the work of starting from the work of one man that's been able to connect people like the Tree Foundation, who joined Nat Geo, and the pushing to save this forest, with the most significant and effective tactic, which is building conservation walls, this is what they call them, around the forests. These walls are simple stone walls that are built by the local community. And these walls form pockets of life, protecting the forest from livestock, which is one of the two big menaces is agriculture and livestock coming in and grazing, and with that decimating all the new growth and leaving only the old trees that, coming to the end of their lives. These walls, funny enough, frame and take us back to the other sketch and what we understand now as a garden. So, we want to head into our projects. I'm going to pass it on to Chloe now. To speak about one of the first projects.
So I'll talk about, it's an early project of ours, very much in the thinking, I guess, with the Ethiopian church forest, which is very much about protection and sort of how do you reinvent the idea of a garden within a wild setting. So this is what the site looked like when we found it. I'll just go forward. So this project is on the Kenyan coast. And traditionally on the Kenyan coast, what most people do is they just cut down all the indigenous vegetation and plant lawns and hibiscus and palms, all these things which take a lot of water and at the same time destroy the natural habitat. So these coastal forests are becoming very, very, very rare. So essentially we discussed with the client the value in in protecting this amazing, amazing flora. I mean, it's so wonderful, the different things that grow within this space. And we discussed with her, how do we essentially create a usable garden, but not destroying anything, protecting it, and in doing so, but at the same time sort of making it usable for them as a family, a private house. So eventually what we decided to do was to make a journey within the space. Sometimes creating very transient, very small paths that move through the bush that you almost sort of have to discover as you go through. It's essentially almost doing nothing. And then these paths come across sort of more bold gestures, I guess, within the landscape, where we're using local materials, which we always do in every project, to create these wide, very generous pathways that allow 2 or 3 people to walk down them abreast. And the beauty is whenever we found a species in our way, we left it and we maintained it. And in doing so, essentially, we're framing these species that are so unique. So it's almost like a canvas. So ironically, when you walk down these paths, your attention is drawn to the detail of all these amazing species. And this is such a cool photo because you can see the Xanthox island, which is a very medicinal coastal tree. It's got these amazing knobbles and thorns on it. So it the gesture draws attention to how wonderful this sort of habitat is. I guess it's kind of an interesting technique that we'd love to explore in other projects, really is. It's interesting. The other thing which was really fun, and we feel very fortunate, the client had this old stone fountain that was hand-carved by Italian prisoners of war. And we basically persuaded her that we should bring it from her garden in Nairobi all the way down to the coast, and we should place it within this wild setting. And by doing that, by placing this sort of very traditional garden ornament, I guess, within such a wild garden, it enhances the wild landscape, and the pre-accepted sort of historical landscape design solutions, they come together. I don't know, I guess it's sort of an interesting play with contrast of expectation of what you expect within a garden, and then this wild setting. So, and again, I kind of touched on this slightly before, but I just really want to reiterate the importance of using, or our use in every project, of local materials that are, if possible, found on the site. So these paths are made from coral hardcore and then crushed coral to make the surface on top, which was coral taken out during the foundations of the building of the pool or something. And we basically used those materials we already had on site to make the project. And by doing that intrinsically, then there's a very clear sense of identity that it belongs, because the project is built with what is there. And we explore that on quite a few projects that we'll demonstrate in different ways. And so I guess this is an example of redefining what is a garden now. Now things are changing. And I think now we need to see and understand what's precious and what needs to be protected, and sort of explore that within landscape design, in some ways. So I'll go on. You can start. We'll go on another journey now.
Yeah, because connecting, similar to what we were just discussing before about the sketches, I want to take us to Tanzania. So basically, the story here is starts with a random email that we received by chance or divine intervention. Sorry. And the message basically read, was asking to find someone to help design a garden for a hermitage in Tabora, Tanzania, which is I mean, it's rare to get an email from the contact on the website, let alone one for asking for such a special thing. And then he explained further down, it's like, as you probably know, a hermitage is basically a residence for a solitary monk who lives in silence, as opposed to community of monks. It was basically making it like a real thing. So just from the contents of that email we already started our research, which is something that we do for every project. There's for us the stage one, the preparation phase, is really a research phase to understand what I was describing before, the physical, natural landscape and the human landscape, to understand everything. And of course, I mean, a request like this is just like blew our minds, and we were already fresh with what we had been reading about the church forests, coincidentally. And so basically we started going down this rabbit hole, learned that this place is also, I mean, it's full of history. It is a very, very fragile and very endangered biome, which is the Miombo woodland, or Central Zambesian Miombo woodland. So that was already.
It's like a rare
very,
forest, type of forest.
Yeah, and Miombo is a Swahili name for the Brachystegia, and three of the species are structural for the whole ecosystem. So, as I said, our research was just fascinating. We found that Tabora is basically one of the main stops in the was founded actually as Gazé in 1852 during the ivory and slave trade routes that connected Lake Tanganyika with the coast. It was also the last dwelling of Livingstone before he met Stanley in Ujiji, which is where actually the main slave trade center was. And this is actually what remains, one of the few things that remains from that history. This is the house where he lived, and then where Stanley stayed as well. It's an old Swahili house that was given to him by a very rich slave trader.
Terrible.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that's remaining from that culture. Along with that is the mango trees that the Swahili planted everywhere, that line the streets of Tabora still till today. It's ancient mango trees. They also coconut and date. Then there was a change from the Swahili Omani to the German East Protectorate, and then they lost that in the Tabora offensive to pass on to the British until the independence. So there's a lot of
big history.
There's a lot of big history, a lot of change of hands, a lot of suffering, a lot of poverty.
There was a lot of research that we had to do.
Yeah, so I mean, this first research was really just the doorstep to a rabbit hole that was just never ending. It was like every day you found like more doors open, and it was just, it was insane. So basically, similar to Salam House, we found ourselves with a natural landscape and a human landscape that needed to be celebrated, that needed to be protected. So we went to Tabora to see what was there, to meet our client, to meet, to try and find people who we could work with. Because the particularity about this project is that, and he put it very clearly from the very beginning. He says, like, okay, so
I'm a hermit.
I'm a hermit. I'm not there yet. I will go there. I'll take the time to do this work because it's in my interest, but then I'm out.
No more contact.
There'll be no more contact. So basically we needed to sort everything out at that time. And it was very much a work of so I spent a week there meeting a lot of people, trying to find the sources for the trees, the materials, the skills to work with. Yeah, and his original, the first brief that he shared with us, he listed like 5 points. The first one being inspiration and beauty, which is something that we somehow, on one hand, we take for granted and forget about because there's a lot of
Problems we have to solve.
problems to solve, yeah, especially in low-budget African projects. But it is a fundamental issue. It needs to be a thing of beauty, and for him, it's also, which was his second point, is contemplation, because he needed a meditation path, a walking meditation. Then he needed it to be partially or ideally wholly self-sustaining of fruits, vegetables, and honey. The area is well known for the stingless bee honey. So there was the interest for that, and yeah, then simple exercise and the opportunity to take at least some simple work, which is part of the monastic requirements that he undertakes as a monk, as a hermit monk in this case. So, and well, that's him, and he had warned us that this place,
The site,
though it's he is meant to be a hermit, is in the middle of Tabora. And just outside, this is what we see. So there's people, I know, selling things and crushing stones, and I mean there is life everywhere around him. And the site itself was very. I mean, it's funny because the church, because this is a church property. And they were very happy to receive a hermit because this is a very rare thing. So it's taken as very good news, and they were worried for his safety. So they built large walls around the property and this beautiful concrete block driveway leading into the house and cleared around so it could be safe. Again, it's this idea of
no vegetation.
Of sweeping everything. So there was not much. In the plots, except for a few larger trees. But at the back, there were a few old mango trees, all syzygiums, and in the middle of the back yard, there's this big old guava tree, which
becomes key, I guess, as we go into the design.
In the design. Then, when exploring the Miombo woodland, I had noticed already, even from the plane, you could see kopis everywhere around. And walking around, you basically walked around them. The whole place is just solid granite.
Granite and woodland, Miombo woodland.
So it's basically this is what you see almost everywhere. But it struck me that the fact that the granite is basically, this is what you see. You see people on the side of the road just crushing it and using it as aggregate for concrete, and then they sculpt concrete stones out of
Make fake stones.
concrete with, yeah, I don't know. It's a very, very strange thing. But it was obvious that it was something that we needed to use. It was, I mean, coming from well, in this case, we were coming from Europe, where basically it's surrounded by, like, everywhere, everything is built in granite. I mean, you have it here as well, but there everything's built on, like, every modern building is just concrete block, and it's all the same. So there's something lost in this picture, and it became obvious again that we needed to understand what was happening here and see if we could actually use this. So, you know, and talking to different masons, and no one knew how to really work the stone. We managed to find some local informal quarries, because there's no real formal quarries, and this is basically what we found, how we learned how they process the stone. They just go around, ask for the owner of a piece of land, is like, can I crush that boulder? And they say, yes, how much are you going to give me? And then they come and make these fires through water, and to make a change in temperature that makes a fault, and then they start hammering it in and breaking, and they crack open boulders.
I love this photo. Like, the scale is amazing.
Like so, and then they crush it to put it into concrete. So it was. Yeah, so we needed to work with that. We needed to re-establish the Miombo woodland in the little plot that we were allowed to work with.
I guess our building blocks were granite and Miombo woodland. So, but as you saw, the site was totally empty. There was nothing there. So we had to start from nothing.
We went to the forestry departments. Of course, there's no nurseries. No one knew what any of these trees were really. We went to and which was sort of, we understood what was happening when we went to the forestry department. They said, like, we have a nursery. It was like fantastic, like, so we go there. It's like, so what do you have? So we have eucalyptus, we have grevillea.
It's all Australian.
It's like, well, it's like, but do you not have any of these species, any of the indigenous Miombos? Like no one wants them, because you can't farm with that. So all they have is exotic species. So. So we were really starting from scratch. Yeah,
we had like an old like an old man who went into the bush to collect seed, and then we also, through trial and error, learned that a lot of the Miombo species could be grown from cutting. So this is us basically starting from scratch, trying to reforest. And I think the beauty of this project is it's an unfinished project, and I think there's a real value in showcasing that projects are long-term. So this is our planting at the moment.
And by the way, I mean, because this is what we always say, well, we used to tell the client that his biggest gift to the community is going to be that nursery.
Nursery, yeah.
Is quite special.
So, so I'll start now talking about the design. That essentially, a bit like Salam House, this is a journey. It's all about meditation. It's about walking, this kind of, he has like a daily routine as part of his hermitage life. So essentially we did a series of paths, and the main key feature, I guess, is that he wanted a labyrinth, because it's a very slow way of walking, this meditation that you just do the same route.
I mean, because we designed a path that went around the garden, which works well. But in our conversations and communication, he had mentioned at one point the Chartres, and the labyrinth in Chartres, and then he had been there, and he had really, like, that it was something really special for him, not only because his experience there, but also the historical connections to his own calling.
Yeah.
So basically, we
designed a Chartres labyrinth.
We took the design, which is actually, it's the same labyrinth is done in 4 different monasteries in France. So we took the same and
but anyway,
brought it to him.
I just think this is interesting to look at construction. So he really wanted to make sure that the journey made sense to him. So this is us digging the foundations for us to create the path, or the network of different paths throughout the project, and then we tested them, so. But I think it's quite interesting to see and understand as the projects come into formation, and that there's something very interesting within the process of the creation of the garden. And like I say, this is unfinished, it's still unfinished. So one thing, just to touch on, the only thing we had in the site was existing trees. And so the existing trees became key focal points within the journey. And you can see the big wall behind, and all our Miombo woodlands literally like this. So in 30 years, this will be surrounded by forest, but not for a while. And so this is us starting to build the labyrinth around this central guava tree.
And I think we haven't mentioned, I said before that there was no skilled labor, and that basically meant, coincidentally, the client's sort of man that connected him with the world was a very young local guy, which is a mason. So I asked him if he actually knew how to work stone, and he said, like, no, I have no idea. So we managed to find a few tools. We managed to get some big bits of granite, and I showed him how to work the stone, how to, in different situations, how to split, how to
read the stone.
How to read.
Working a stone is very much fun.
And then explained how to lay all of this, because this is, of course, like, there's no cement. It's all done, and it's all done by him and one other guy that worked with him. At some point, he had a few more people to help, but most of the time, most of this was built by just two guys.
And it's remarkable because they had no skill. This was all sort of, we learned together, and we learned with the stone.
So that's him. The next one.
Yeah, the next slide. So again, there's something very beautiful about the Chartres design of the labyrinth. It's got these beautiful curves and turns within it, which I was so happy that we managed to achieve in such a rough material. It's just sort of hand chiseled granite.
And all via WhatsApp, huh?
Yeah. We weren't there. We're very good at WhatsApp. So this is Miss Jack working the stone. You can see it's really becoming a central sort of point within the project. Anyway, it's an important project for us. It's still in process. We've not been back. Hopefully we will. But there's a real silence to it, and I think there's something.
So every now and then we get an email with some images and actually usually very, very inspiring words, and we're working with local artisans as well to sculpt what are they called, saints, little saints that go everywhere in different parts of the garden. So he has each tree, he has this connection and this history, this story to connect his journey, his meditation. I mean, it's a quite special project.
We feel very fortunate to work on it, don't we? So I'm going to go now to another sort of religious context project, which I think is interesting because, again, we're very fortunate to have worked on a monastery in Uganda. This is with an architectural firm that we do a lot of work with. We're kind of part of their team is called Local Works in Uganda. And I guess it's very, very interesting to be able to work on such historical projects, or such sort of historically important projects, but within East Africa in kind of a new context. So this is a monastery, I'll show you on the map.
So Cistercian.
Yeah, it's a Cistercian monastery. It looks very pale, but it's essentially in southern Uganda, right next door to Lake Victoria. And the ground conditions are very appropriately in sort of traditional Cistercian monasteries. The ground conditions are really bad. Essentially, it's built in a swamp. And the architecture is awesome. I mean, I don't like that word, but it's very powerful because the church has got a very clear dimension to it. I think it's 7 meters wide, 30 meters long, and 12 meters high, something like that. And so the landscape has to respond to the architecture in a very humble way. We're really, really careful that the landscape is not loud. You know, they've got to talk to each other. And I think this called for a real simplicity within the landscape design. So this is one of the courtyards in front of the church. So it's just a series of benches and guava trees, which will eventually provide shade. And what's interesting is it was an existing monastery that we built these new elements onto. So this is the old cloister. And we actually, our initial first concept was to create a wild forest within the cloister, which traditionally is what cloisters were supposed to be, almost, weren't they, like framing?
Yeah. So again, this goes back to the two sketches, because the original sort of intention of the cloister is contemplation. You can say meditation in a way, but contemplation is basically that, and it came from in this clearing that we made to build the church and the refectory, you know, for the monastery. You'd leave the cloister area untouched with original, like, natural, yeah.
Which is a very interesting idea, just building around a wild piece of vegetation.
Yeah, so basically you're bringing the outside in.
And we wanted to do that. We were super excited, but the monks told us, no, they need it all grass because they have parties, which seem to be
Which is the modern use of the cloisters.
And then, but anyway, because obviously this was the old building, this is not a new building, but we still considered quite carefully the flow into this central space. So you can see the steps. I think the top step is 450, and then they get wider and wider as they go down. So just by looking at dimension, we're trying to slow the journey down. So there's a lot of, the gestures in our work tends to be very, very simple, but we're really thinking about how you move, what you're going to feel, and how that sort of brings you or prepares you for coming into the green space or the garden space.
That also was considered, because it was designed considering the possibility of flooding because this is all built on swamp land, which again is what Chloe was saying, that is traditionally the Cistercians would choose difficult, hydraulically difficult terrains, which is basically what made them experts in those conditions.
So if you look at traditional Cistercian monasteries, they have a lot of beautiful details in regards to drainage. And so we were, of course, super excited about that. And that really led into these other courtyards that we've done. So this is a courtyard for the visitors. So there's sort of rooms for people visiting the monastery. So very simply drawing the space with a cross with these drains. So it's a very simple gesture, and then
the traditional like division in four of the, like, with water in the middle.
Yeah, so very, very much drawing on the traditional elements or historical elements, but readdressing them with local materials, local context, things like that. So again, a drain leading out into a simple courtyard. So very simple, and I think sometimes it's hard to address projects in such a simple way, just a few lines. But we like it. It's peaceful. So yeah, I think in some ways it comes back to the idea of projects being born out of the site itself, and it's something we explore in many of our projects. And sometimes the need comes from requirements to create usable spaces, with very, very small budgets. A lot of our projects have got very small budgets. And by using what's local, and even the local plants that we collect seed from just there, it means we're being sensitive to this sense of identity because we're forced to, because of the limitations of the project. But I think it's...
But it's these limitations that basically have pushed us, and this is, again, goes back to the very beginning, is playing with what's there.
Yeah.
Is embracing those limitations and building it from scratch, because that's all there is.
And so this is a really fun project that we're going to show. Isn't it, like right up northern Uganda near South Sudan? We've got a few projects up there, all the way up at the top. It looks very pale, but and essentially this was 2 schools. We've shown you this image already, but we were doing 2 schools for the African Wildlife Foundation in Kidepo. And this was some of our first site visits where we were going and talking to the local community, engaging with the stakeholders, trying to understand how we were going to design effective schools for the community there. And it's just so wonderful. You've got these 2, Kigelia africana, and the massive one on the left is where all our meetings were held, in the shade of the tree. And it was just very, very evident what we needed to do, I guess, to create, to provide spaces for the school children within this environment from a landscape perspective.
This is, as Chloe was just pointing out, this is far out. Very
far, very remote. It took us like 3 days to drive there.
Yeah, but that means that the cost of a sack of cement, for instance, just goes to the roof. So all the work there needed to be done basically with what's there. Taking and the architects also, what they did the same. They took the local knowledge to build the schools using the same way, adding here and there a little bit modern knowledge, but not materials.
No materials.
The materials were all so it's really taking what was there because it was impossible to do anything else.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
Like
so
literally nothing.
Again, I'll go quickly. So the local stone, it's a bit like Tabora. There's all these granite copies. So we got the local community to hand quarry just with pickaxes some of the local stone, and then essentially created these outdoor spaces under the shade of the tree. So the tree is telling us what we need to do, and that's enough, it's okay. And we built other benches too, and for us it was really, really fun to see how not just the school children, but the whole community suddenly used benches, like everybody kept gathering on them. So
what's funny, because these benches were next to a football pitch.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, the human landscape was people under trees.
Yes.
This is what, I mean, and you see this in most cultures around the world. I mean, people gather under a tree. This is, in Africa, it's quite strong. I mean, and many trees are sacred for that reason, because that's where they gather, that's where they hold the meetings and all that. But this bench, for instance, is next to the other sort of passion, which is football.
Yeah.
And but it has become it's not just to watch the football. It's like people are actually meeting there, are gathering, are like having like
people have siestas there.
Building life around those 2 benches.
Yeah. It was really exciting to see how everyone uses it. Now we're going to fly over to Rwanda.
Very different.
Very different. I think we want to show this project in Rwanda because, again, how do we find identity in each of the projects? What are the things that we draw on? And how do we deal with certain problems within the site? I guess. And by being true to the sense of place and exploring and researching what's there, it kind of defines each project. So I'm going to show you the site. This is one of this enormous, very attractive house looking into the site. This was the site itself, and where the arrow is, I just want you to remember that's a grevillea tree, lots of Australian trees. Basically looking this, it was just a sort of blank canvas again, and lots of properties looking in. And now this project is for kind of not a high-end, sort of middle-range lodge in Rwanda, where the guests are going to visit the gorillas, so they kind of go for a day trek.
So the last is where they stay before they go, like early in the morning next day to.
And there's lots of very high-end lodges. Francesco knows. Very high-end lodges that are there that sort of higher-paying guests go, but this is sort of a middle-income lodge. But for us, it's very, very interesting because there's a lot of design problems in that we have to deal with. I mean, how create an interesting landscape that feels private in this space.
And this was a lodge that was already existing. It's actually called Bishop's House because it used to be the house of the bishop.
We've got lots of religious things in our project.
But this is not anymore, not anymore. But the building was there. It was in the plot right next door. From what we're seeing now, the client had also bought the property next door, which is basically surrounded by all these buildings, by the house that Chloe was just showing. So but there was a lot going on. This is in the middle of the city. This is a hotel. Yeah. Yeah.
So and then the other thing in Rwanda.
How do we reconnect?
That is hard. It's got a huge population. There's not many pockets of indigenous landscapes left. The Volcanoes National Park is one of them. And it's very, very heavily farmed. So from our perspective, where do we find plants to use within this project? There's no nurseries. So essentially we turn to the agricultural landscape and use plants that we could easily procure as the first stage. In all of our planting plans, we do phase planting. So in this project, it's pretty obvious we had to create privacy, so the initial privacy plantings are done with agricultural plants, and then we source tiny indigenous trees like this, which eventually the indigenous plants will take over. And then the other thing is very evident is the local volcanic stone, because it's a series of volcanoes right there. And so this is normally how the volcanic stone is used, just kind of with lots of cement, mortar, and not very beautiful.
Yeah,
but
it is used quite a lot, but it's
used a lot.
But it usually doesn't look very, very good.
Yeah, and the thing with volcanic stone is it's super versatile. It's really fun. It's quite soft. So we went a bit mad playing with stone, which we do a lot. We play a lot. So this is us starting to play with things, starting to really play with paving and walls. Anyway, I'll keep going through. So this is starting to show the formation of the project. It's an inward-looking project. We've got planting all the way around and sort of courtyard screen walls, and we've got an inward-looking garden. But this is just really showing you, obviously we used bananas, and how we went to town with the volcanic stones that are really trying to celebrate this local material and being very creative with it. So these are some of the screen walls that we created to sort of block some of the houses. So you've got a series of courtyards that you walk through, and again you can see the real celebration of the bananas. The bananas are wonderful because they're so easy to procure. You just plant them as a rootstock and they just take off. So it's like a dream. And it's also fun for the guests because a lot of guests are not, obviously they're coming from abroad, so for them to see this sort of very textural planting is really fun. And then we started to source some of the forest plants from near the national park. But anyway, it's kind of a very green landscape. Again,
it's a face planting.
Playing with the stone. We really went a bit mad. And then this, I just kind of want to show you that it was all permeable paving, which I think is really important. And now, because it's so humid and it rains a lot, very high altitude, we've got all these beautiful mosses starting to take over the stone. So that's fun. And this is sort of the internal courtyard, and you can see, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but there's the tree. That tree on the left, the tall tree on the left, is the grevillea that you saw in the original photo where you were looking at the site. So all the houses are kind of behind the planting. And the pool was really funny because the client asked us for a kidney-shaped pool that we were terrified how we were going to design a kidney-shaped pool in an effective way.
So basically for that we just went back to the origin, as we usually do, Thomas Church.
Yeah, we studied Thomas Church.
And studied, the shape, the negative spaces, really.
Yeah, we realised his pool was so successful because not of the shape of the pool, but the negative space that was drawn by the spaces, by the paving, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We kind of realised that was what was successful about it. So we copied him.
Not exactly, but yeah, but it works.
Okay, so now we just got a few more things to share with you, but now we're going to take you back to Uganda for a rural school that we worked on. I'll just go through. So this school essentially is made up of 3 sites. We've got the main school site. We've got a conservation area, which is essentially a rewilded plot of land. And we've got the site called the Boulder site, which was a reforestation sort of trialing. There's a real issue. I'd kind of give you the introduction because there's a real issue with all of the eucalypts in East Africa because they turn the soil really acidic and they take a lot of water. So the Australian species, even though they grow very, very, very fast and can be coppice, so they can cut and they grow again, they're actually damaging the ecosystem. So at the Boulder site, we're trialing indigenous species that don't turn the soils acidic, that sort of support the wider ecology, but they're species that can be coppiced or pollarded. Often in East Africa, you have to pollard because the goats are very destructive, so you have to pollard at above goat height. But anyway, it's a very, very interesting project, and I just want to touch on quickly again the theme of us building the project out of the site with the materiality of the site itself. So this is the wonderful red soil in Uganda. It's so rich, it's so beautiful. Even in Kenya, there's very, very rich, dense soils like this. So this was during the construction. They were digging to start building the school, but it just shows you the very red soil and the local stone, which is this very reddish sandstone on the outside, and when you break it, it's kind of got a grey tonality to it. So these are our local materials. This is what we have to work with. And again, it's with the same architectural firm we do lots of work with, so they also enjoy or find it important to build with what belongs, what's there. So the construction...
This was a good mix because it's all of us, including the client, they're all going in the same direction.
Yeah, we all believe that it's key. So the school is built with an earth bag construction, so it's all earth, and then you've got these rendered earth plasters on top, and the architecture is very curvaceous. And Mike and I always believe as landscape designers or landscape architects, you've got to really respond to the language of the architecture. The architecture and the landscape, they need to belong. So if the architecture is going a certain way, then as landscape, we've got to respond to that. It's not like we're coming in with all our new ideas that are different to the architects. There's got to be a symbiosis between the two. So the building was very curvaceous, this kind of real ebb and flow to it, and this very quick sketch kind of was the starting point, I guess, of us responding to that architectural element and finding a playfulness within the design.
Yeah, and responding to the challenges, because in this case, and it's basically what we're going to see next, is and is what this is hinting, is we had a situation where where the 2 main buildings are along a contour on 2 very, very different levels and quite close together. And we needed a path, an accessible path. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was fun. to find a, because you want to, when you design a path like this, I mean, people are especially here, I mean, they
anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere, but yeah, but in the context of a city, you follow a path more or less. I mean, there are very clear guidelines of what you have to do. When you're out, you just go the shortest route. End of story. Whatever's easier, not necessarily the shortest, but the easiest route. You're always going to be lazy about it, but that's a good way. So finding that path where people would follow, that would not cut through, that would make sense and work with a 1 to 12 and all that was quite a challenge. But I think
it was really cool because when we formed the earthwork of this main central path that's sort of sweeping up, the builders started using it straight away, so we were like, yes, this is good.
Yeah,
then.
that was success.
But just to touch a little bit on the materiality, the path is made with the local soils that we compact with lime. So essentially the finish is almost as hard as concrete. And then obviously the local stone, and we've got these certain elements of retaining wall. But there's a real playfulness to the path, and it's really fun to see the children integrate with this path. Again, it's my famous wide path, so that people can really form a community as they're walking on the path. Very narrow paths don't allow this sense of coming together. So that's really important, but also it's got a flow and an ebb to it, and the children tend to sort of climb up on these walls and balance along them and jump off. So trying to find a playfulness even within the brief, which is essentially getting people from A to B, which is in a lot of landscape briefs, you just need to create a path, and it's okay to just create a path. I mean, you can do it very well and very sort of in an exciting way, I guess.
But that path was the most difficult thing of that project.
Yeah, it was. So again, looking at more materiality, it was really important for the architect that the inside and outside had this sort of ebb and flow to it. So this compacted earth floor comes into the architectural spaces and out again. So there's there's like a real connection between the two, which is something we explore in a lot of our projects together. We go through. Then this is a compacted earth plaster, creating these pathways and terraces, and what's so wonderful is the teachers are now using it as a tool. So the children just draw all over them in all of their lessons. It's a really beautiful school, very focused on nature-based learning. So they're just finding things, sticks and things like that, and using them as a tool for teaching. This is again the stone. And this is the entrance steps into the school. So it's really fun. So I'm just going to show you one video. It's kind of fun.
Thank you.
Just
when you see a number, when I give you a number, you first look for the number going to 10. You look for the number going to 10. You can put a circle in there. Yes. Like this and like this. Was it again?
Yes.
Have you got it?
Yes. Also, this not your phone. That one is 30. Count to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. The answer is 16. Now today we are going to do some planting. We are going to do some planting. But now this time around we are going to take columns and rows. What are we going to take? Columns and rows. We are going to plant our seeds in columns and rows of 5. Of 5. Finish to grow my seeds. Then I'm going to wait for the rain to grow in my seeds. Then the sun shines down in my seeds. Then the sprays come on and the soil falls. Then it starts to grow.
So, yeah, I guess it's like a nice, oh gosh, sorry. It's like a nice, I guess you get a nice feeling of the school and how joyful it is. I think we need to end. We've got more to tell you, but we'll finish now.
Thank you so much, Chloe and Michael, for an absolutely fascinating journey through all your projects. Yes, if we can put that one up. Thank you. It's been an extraordinary process, understanding how you design things and the way you think about site and location and place as something that reverberates through them. It's been wonderful. I'd just like to mention a couple of our current and upcoming events. We have the next Dulux Gallery exhibition, Odds and Ends, the landscape architecture of Richard Weller, will open on Monday the 30th of October with a public lecture being held the following evening, with Richard reflecting on his wide-ranging academic and professional career in landscape architecture. And this will be followed by a floor talk on Thursday the 2nd of November, the final day of what is going to be a not-to-be-missed exhibition. There will also be a couple of events presented by Akahutch this week, including a visit from Dr. Rosemary Hill from Oxford University, who will speak tomorrow evening in the Japanese room about Stonehenge and its enduring ability to fascinate. And this Thursday evening, the exhibition, The Endless Interior from Austria to the Antipodes, will be launching at the Glen Ira Council Gallery, showcasing never-before-seen artefacts from European-trained émigré designers. Please head to our website for more details on these and all our upcoming events. Thank you again, and I wish you a good evening.